You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? Getting old sucks. Well, it can unless you're a badass grandma who isn't taking shit from scammers. Then it's just a fun rascal ride in the valley. Amber and Scott discuss. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
You find yourself in the unique position. What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
What would you do?
How do you want to handle this?
What would you do? Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
Well, getting old sure does suck.
Yeah, well, pros and cons. Certainly beats the alternative.
Speaking of cons, today's movie was Thelma.
Speaking of cons?
Yes.
Oh, cons. Yes, of course. Yes, Thelma. When 93-year-old Thelma Post gets duped by a phone scammer pretending to be her grandson, she sets out on a treacherous quest across the city to reclaim what was taken from her.
I kind of feel like always spoilers. This is your last chance. I kind of feel like the end of this movie felt like the mildest version of the beekeeper possible. Like the beekeeper was one end of the extreme of the telephone scam.
Yes.
When they get their comeuppance, and this was the opposite end of it, which, hi, I'm such and such. Do you happen to have my money?
Yeah. So,
before pulling out a...
Yes. So Thelma does end up finding the guy who stole $10,000 from her, essentially, when he had I don't know what the young boy's relationship was to him, if it was a son or a grandson or whatnot, but when he orchestrated a con which made Thelma think her grandson was in jail and conned her into sending $10,000 cash through the mail. And she ultimately found this person, and she was wielding a gun, but she was pretty kind because the guy said he was on hard times, which, yeah, right. But when she took back her money, she left him $500.
Yeah. I was like, I'm sorry. If I've just had to go cross town
on a scooter or on foot,
on a rascal scooter to get my money back after the night I'd had to get to that point, I'm not leaving this scammer $500.
She was a nice lady.
Yeah, I might have taken out an extra $500. I might have been like, I'm going to take this for my troubles.
Yeah. So the film follows Thelma going through the city, enlisting the help of a friend, and basically sneaking away from her grandson and ultimately her daughter and son-in-law to go and find this money because she feels wronged, and they were just like, oh, it could have been worse as long as you're okay. But she wanted her money back, so she went rogue, and they didn't know where she was. So the movie is following her and her adventures with this friend on the scooter going through the valley in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and since we live out here and we know all of this stuff, I was like, oh, that's an interesting little trek she had to take. I want to make one thing perfectly clear here in a real-world perspective of what would you do. These scammers exist, and some of the scams that they run are far more intricate than the one that we saw in the movie.
Yeah.
And it is easy for the best of us to get tricked.
Right.
I mean, I actually got tricked on one. I mean, it was a number of years ago at this point, and I felt stupid in retrospect. But it also wasn't very much money, so it wasn't $10,000. I think it was like $75. So I didn't feel like too bad when it was said and done. But yeah, never mail cash ever.
Yeah.
Like if
really, I mean, it was that. So the first person called and supposedly was her grandson. She was like, "You sound funny," but she still continued the conversation anyway. And then this grandson, I'm putting in air quotes, grandson said, someone's going to call you to make arrangements. And then she got another call from someone who says, yeah, you need to, your son's in jail. You need to mail us cash. Well, first of all, there's so many things wrong with that. If someone's in jail, you do not mail cash to a P.O. box.
Yeah.
So let's just,
no.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it was funny. This story was very bittersweet to me because I think if maybe you were of a certain age, it could just be a funny movie. But I think as you age and the people around you age, I saw this movie through a different lens.
Oh, yeah.
Of either parents or myself, and the process of getting older and people treating you differently. And in this case,
kind of justifiably so.
Well, sometimes and sometimes
but it
not.
depends. I mean, it depends on which perspective. Like if you were the friend was like, hey, listen, I know that I'm in a lesser state than I used to be. I know because I've seen and done this and this and this and this, and I'm just going to accept that that's where I'm at and allow others to help me. And it does really depend a lot, obviously, person to person.
Yes, 70 can look very different for many people. You can be very young or very...
Did you say 70?
Well, she was in her 90s, but I'm just saying, at any age, it can mean different things to different people.
I mean,
we're
you
all
could
individuals.
You could be
over
over
in her 90s, in the movie and in real life.
Yeah, actually, funny enough, she was playing her age. We looked that up. I mean, I've seen people literally over 100 that were still pretty sharp as a tack. It can certainly happen, and I've seen people in their 50s, or even one guy who's 48 who is completely losing his mind. As just a note, I'm 48 years old.
It's hard. Aging is a complicated thing. And, as I watched this film, I thought about things I've dealt with personally and, my future. And it always saddens me so much when people talk to older people in a way that they somehow got dumb. And sometimes there is cognitive decline, and sometimes it's justified to try and make things a little bit more simple. And sometimes it's not. And I think as a society, we have a tendency to blanket. We're saying, oh, someone's old, so they're not capable or they're not sharp or whatnot. And the thing with the scam, she happened to be in her 90s, but there's plenty of people in, their 40s or 50s or younger that fall for scams. That isn't an age thing.
Yeah, and what's funny is they didn't even talk about AI in this scam. Like, using AI, this scam that they ran can be run pretty close to flawlessly. I mean, if they had something from
Someone's
the grandson, which, by the way, PSA number one, and this is something I learned about a year and a half ago. If ever you get a call from a number you don't know and you pick up the phone, you're like, hello, hello, hello. Don't do that, ever.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't know the number, I will pick it up and I will just real quickly, I'll usually drop my voice and I'll be like, hello?
Yeah. Or
At one time. You get one, because there are definitely people out there that the entire reason they are calling is to get a voice print on you. So when you say hello, 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 you're feeding their AI information to be able to copy your voice. Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's a real thing. That's not speculation or paranoia. That is a legitimate real thing.
So, but my PSA number two on this, people who are close to each other, immediate family, people who might get a call in a situation where somebody got hurt or whatever, you need to have some form of a code word or something special that you two would only know.
Yeah.
And ask them about that thing, because...
Yeah, this is Johnny. Okay, Johnny, what's our code word? Oh, hi, Grandma, it's tomato pie. And then you know that it's really Johnny calling that he's been kidnapped.
Yeah, it could be a code word, or it could be using a certain manner of speech with somebody, saying like, is this really you, Scott? Yes, baby, it's me. Yes, baby. Totally me.
Well, or some sort of verifiable thing of, what was the name of your cat when you were 5?
Yeah, I mean,
or, something that if there's a crisis, like you said, and especially if it's an unknown number, because you just don't know in today's world.
Or even just simply the question, tell me something that...
Well, this came up on The Watchers. We've had this conversation similar when it came for The Watchers.
Tell me something only I could know.
Right. And
you don't even need a code. Like, make them come up with something that's something specific.
Yeah. What do I put in my smoothie every day?
Yeah.
Well, you put chia seed in it.
Don't ask the question. Just say, tell me something. And you'll know that person, and you'll know if they're telling you something. Like, if they're guessing at something, like, tell me something very specific.
Yeah. You wear a purple robe every night.
Yeah, and that way you can do that with literally anyone who might call in that scenario, whether you have a set up code word or anything.
Yeah, I agree on that.
So, yeah, this PSA, because, I mean, it's $10,000 mailed off, and it's not like this isn't based in reality. I mean, people have gotten hit with this exact type of scam all the time.
And fortunately, she was dealing with some stupid con artists in the fact that they gave her a P.O. box, but it was enough for her to go and find that P.O. box and stake out and wait till someone checked it and follow them back. And then, which basically led her to the two perpetrators of the con.
Yeah, in real life, it's not going down like that.
Yeah.
She got very lucky with the people who were actually running the scam.
Yeah, that they were actually local to her. It was...
And not heavily armed.
Yeah, for sure. It was, I had a lot of emotions through this film because, there were parts where when she picked up her friend, she went to a nursing home to pick him up. And she had been dealing with life after her husband had died 2 years ago. And she had an episode where she had some temporary confusion and memory loss, and which was fleeting. But, it was just, to me, it was a look at aging and how scary that can be, and how if you are the loved one of someone who's aging, always be as kind as you can. And sometimes that's hard in the moment. There's a lot of stress when it comes to aging parents and whatnot and responsibilities. But the grandson had a moment where he's like, I know there's going to be a day that you're not going to be here, and I want to tell you now I'm going to miss you and I love you. Yeah. And I really love that part of the movie.
But it's also another thing to note, because you can say, okay, so-and-so is doing fine, like this isn't going to happen to so-and-so. And there was a moment in the movie when they went to Mona's house to get the gun. And they straight up said, this is going to be difficult. Mona's got her shit together, so we're going to have to figure out a way of getting this past her. And when we get in there, we see Mona did not have her shit together. Now, I'm sure she did fairly recently, but that's the thing, too. And this is where it gets very difficult because...
Well, and for context, for people who haven't seen the film, Mona was dressed. She was sitting nicely in her living room, but she was watching TV of, a video or show of birds. And she was just sitting there quietly, and there were some dirty dishes around, and she had an issue with cockroaches, but mostly forgotten. Like, not any real stimulation. And she was definitely at some stage of dementia because she had the same conversation again, like, oh, it's good to see you here. You just
well, not only that, a bullet went through her floor into her vase, and she was not even remotely fazed by this. So, and that is...
Well, and in fairness, she didn't notice. I don't think she saw it. She wasn't fazed by it. I don't think. Well, I think she was unaware.
It's a gun going off, going through your vase.
Well, it was on another floor that went through the ceiling and whatnot. But...
It through the vase that was like 8 feet from you.
And it fell a little to the side. If you're hard of hearing, it would be easy to miss. Like at the end, when Thelma flips a cigarette into a garbage can that has an oxygen tank, and hilarious. It blows up, and there's fire, and they're walking away, but they don't realize that because they're hard of hearing, and they're like, "Did you say something?"
What did you say?
And they didn't realize there was this massive explosion behind them.
But my point is the truth is no matter who we are, I'm going to say this: 100% of people, as they really truly get into the golden years, are going to experience cognitive decline. Now, that's a relative term. Some people can decline like a little bit and still be more than sharp enough to function 100% I can tell you, again, I'm 48. There is not a question in my mind that I am less sharp today than I was 10 years ago, and even more so than 15 years ago. It's going to happen to all of us. So you always have to kind of, and usually you're not going to see it. It's other people who are going to see it. And this is where it gets real tricky, where you always want to trust people and trust their independence and trust their judgment and stuff like that. But we all will decline eventually.
Yeah, it's a matter of seeing one-offs versus patterns.
Yes.
And that's the case with anyone at any age and any given behavior. That could be a 25-year-old, relationship, and the guy's dating a girl and says or does something, and it's like, okay, was that a one-off, or does that happen all the time? And then that's actually a behavior and a habit that's problematic. So, I mean, that's the case with anyone. But sticking to the context of our show here, what would you do if you were in any one of the characters, maybe even the grandson, who felt responsible for Thelma kind of wandering off?
Well,
And she didn't wander off. Like, she intentionally left. She intentionally ditched them. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm confused, I'm wandering off.
Oh,
she
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
no,
like, I'm getting my money back and I'm leaving.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about cognitive decline. She was sharp. Like she figured out a plan to get that rascal and get it moving.
And that's actually a really good point too, because when she called her grandson, when she realized she could get the address and figure out how to track them down, and she called her grandson, and her grandson was like, "Oh, wait, Grandma, are you at home? Why, you shouldn't have walked there by yourself. You should have let me drive you." And was kind of treating her in a way like she was incapable. And because of that, she just didn't tell him what her plans were to try and track down her money. And that to me was kind of sad, because I think although it was evident that the grandson loved her very deeply, I think it kind of goes to that default where some people have with aging people, where it's like, oh, no, don't do that, let me do it for you, or oh, don't do that, and they want to walk, or they want to do the thing, and people try to keep them, they're afraid of them getting hurt, so they try and keep them in this little box.
Aging or not, always treat people with dignity.
Yeah.
And understand that, yes, somebody may be in cognitive decline and they may need your help, but there's a good chance that even with their cognitive decline, if you're acting in a disrespectful way, like not involving them in conversations, talking behind their back, stuff like that, they're probably going to realize that you're acting in a disrespectful way. Now, again,
and there's nothing more rude in that context of talking about someone in the third person, like they're not there. And I've seen that firsthand of like, oh, well, does Scott like vanilla ice cream? And I'm like, Scott's right here. Ask Scott if he likes vanilla ice cream. So I've seen that happen, and it's terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
and that goes back to the treating people with dignity.
I mean, give people a chance to answer first. And I mean, like even when they were talking about whether or not she should be living on her own, and she was in the other room, like she could hear them talking. She knew what they were talking about, and she was like, you could tell, visibly distressed over it. So
it was about sending off the $10,000. It wasn't like something had happened where she had accidentally lit a fire or she had fallen. It was nothing pertaining to her ability to live on her own. It was about her succumbing to the scam, which many people could possibly do. So, what would you do in any of these characters' shoes if you were Thelma or the grandson or the mom or the friend?
I mean, honestly, if I'm Thelma, I'm not going after the money at that point. You have to assume you're going into a situation where you're dealing with people who are in multitudes, armed, and significantly younger, i.e., even if you've got a gun, what are you really going to do? I mean, in real life, probably nothing. You've been screwed, and you're screwed.
If you have some information to go on, though,
well, you give that information to the police. Well, the cops asked for an address.
Yeah,
they didn't have one to provide.
She didn't have it at the time. She had thrown out the piece of paper.
She found the information. You go to the cops and say, "Here's what I have." Those are the people who are designed to do it. Even me now, I'd go to the police and have them take care of it.
So what I hear is Thelma's showing you up, and she's a badass, and she's taking care of business. And
yeah, she also
you're being Mr. Law Abiding.
She also had a movie scriptwriter on her side.
Yeah.
So, but my what would you do is just gonna be, if you're the younger party,
the grandson,
anyone.
Okay.
Treat people with respect.
Yeah.
Always treat people with respect. But if you're on the older side, also understand that you are going to experience cognitive decline. Like, you are, however sharp you are today is probably the sharpest you're going to be. You're going to be a little less sharp tomorrow and a little less sharp the day after that. And be understanding of this if eventually decisions have to be made in your best interest.
See, but I don't think any of this plot line had to do with her cognitive decline. It had to do with her falling for a scam, which there's plenty,
yes, but her
silly or
cognitive,
trusting 30-year-olds who could have done the
her
same.
amnesia and cognitive decline in the past is what made them think that she could be in trouble now. So yes, it was dueling storylines. Like I don't see the fact that she got scammed as the cognitive decline, but the other things that truly were cognitive decline.
Like what?
Like the amnesia.
Yeah, she had a strange bout of that lasted, I think they said, an hour. And then
that's the one they knew of. More than likely, there's more that they didn't know of that weren't recorded.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, everyone make a plan when you're getting into your older ages, while you still have all your mental faculties. Make a plan with your loved ones as to what's going to happen, what's going to trigger certain things. And that way you are a part of the decision-making process while you still can be.
Yeah.
So,
and whoever's in your life, a mom, a dad, a grandma, a grandpa, go give them a hug.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release at least 1 and generally 2 to 3 episodes a week, so we have new content regularly. Until next time.